Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today I want to talk about something a little different, a little controversial, and something that might actually get me in trouble here on the internet space. You see, we're not supposed to talk about a certain group on the internet because they're apparently marginalized, at least according to a lot of leftists and people in charge of the media. I'm of course talking about that Middle Kingdom, that Far East nation, the source of this pandemic. The People's Republic of China is who's the topic of today's video, and I'm bringing them up for a number of reasons. Firstly, as I said, we're kind of not supposed to talk about them. If you do here on YouTube, you get flagged. Sometimes your ads get taken away, and that's happened to me a number of times recently. I've had my Beijing video flagged, and I've had my journalism video flagged too, and both of them were concerning issues revolving around China. They're a no-no word. You're not allowed to talk about them, but I'm going to anyway because I'm just sick of being silent and not saying the word China and not talking about this hypocrisy, and I want to give you guys a little perspective and see how bad this situation has gotten. This, of course, is a politically motivated thing. The leftists want to support China because they're anti-America. And in addition, China is a very big adversary for our president, Donald J. Trump. We all know the leftists and a lot of American liberals hate the president, so of course they're going to buddy up with the president's adversaries. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, as they say it, and that's kind of what's happening here. So this has become a bigger issue now because of what's happening in the world today. Of course, there's a health scare, there's this big pandemic, and it all came from a Wuhan region in this China country. They, of course, tried to cover it up. They tried to hide the numbers and still let international travel leave their nation, despite them knowing the virus was spreading. Very bad story, and they've been trying to cover it up ever since. And this is why they want to get the story kind of muted and changed in the public in the Western world, in America. China, of course, has operatives here. They have people speaking for them in the press directly, and that's why things happen like people calling the president racist for saying this pandemic comes from China. If Trump mentions China, he gets called racist, he gets called out, they try to say he's offensive and all that kind of stuff, and it really makes you wonder, why do people say China is a marginalized group anyway? That's what YouTube says when they don't give you ads when you talk about China. They say it's a marginalized group, but I'm just not buying that. People say that in the media too. That's what the liberals say. That's why they say they're a minority and we need to protect them and we need to make sure China doesn't get offended, but they're like not a marginalized group. They're actually the margin. They're like the biggest group. They're 1 billion people plus. They're dominating the world in a lot of ways, in a lot of industries. They're kind of these authoritarian, bossy, terrible, and they're the villains. They're the bad guys. They're trying to pretend they're these marginalized, innocent victims, but they're actually the big bad baddies. And that's what's so frustrating here. That's what's so terrible about this situation is this is politically influenced, and it's kind of China playing their games, playing the system. They know what they're doing, and this goes back to a story I did in a previous video when I talked about Beijing and the leadership in China in their capital, and it was about how they're using identity politics against us, and this is happening here too. That's why they're trying to claim to be this marginalized group. They're trying to play up the race card, saying they're victims, and they know how this identity politics thing works in America, and they're using that to their advantage. And this, of course, is to be expected because this is common communist propaganda tactics. They use identity and stuff like this all the time. It's part of their legacy. It's where it comes from. It's where the left comes from. The far left comes from socialists and communists and these kinds of propaganda artists. They want to use race and sex and gender against you. They have these Marxist beliefs about identity, and that's what's kind of come to the foreground here and what we're talking about today. The problem with today is they're silencing anyone who talks about China, especially people critical of China like yours truly. And I know I might be wearing a red shirt today that matches the red of China, but I'm actually wearing this because of red, white, and blue. You can't see it, but my underwear is blue underneath this. And the point is, China is bad, and you're not allowed to talk about them, and it's just a big part of their kind of strategy. They're using this identity politics against us. They're doing propaganda, and they're kind of using these social media websites rules against us too. So if you can't be critical of China in videos, who's going to figure out what's about them? If they're going to flag the videos here and not give them ads, that means they're not going to get spread as much, so not as many people are going to see this. This video itself is not going to get out there as much because I can't talk about China anymore. I mean, it's just like censored, and It shows that it's politically motivated, it's pro-China propaganda, and it's all about, supporting the leftists and taking down the conservatives. Conservatives are pro-America, pro-us, and the leftists are pro-China, and that's the world we're living in today. And this is not the only thing that's been happening like this. There's another thing you're not allowed to talk about that's also heavily related. I'm next going to talk about Joe Biden, the former vice president of the United States, and now the possible presidential candidate for the Democratic Party. Joe Biden has had lots of ties to China too, so this actually is highly related. He's been a speaker with China. He worked with China under the Obama administration. His son went to China and got a big job there, a big cushy job. They've been trading favors and stuff for years. And that's why Joe Biden defends China. And that's why China defends Joe Biden. These propaganda artists in the media, in the social media companies, in the press, they're going to defend him. And they're also saying you can't talk about Biden either. Now, with Biden, it's a little different because he can still come up. I've made videos about him, but there's a certain story and a certain topic you could probably guess that is taboo. You're not allowed to talk about certain accusations and certain bad things he might have done in his older years of his career. We're, of course, talking about Biden being a creep, taking advantage of the ladies, and that's something you're not allowed to mention either. And I think it's very telling that these two topics, China and Biden, are untouchable. You're not allowed to bring them up, and if you do, you're racist, sexist, homophobic. They'll use your identity against you. They'll call you a white supremacist or something else of the other kind of silly names they throw around. And I think it's funny that now I realize it and I talk about it out loud. The fact that Joe Biden is connected to China already and the fact that you can't talk about these things is very telling. It shows you what the news wants you to hear. It shows you how they funnel the news and get you to talk about certain things. They make certain things taboo, no words that you can't mention that are bad. And then other things they promote like crazy. Like if I was talking trash about Trump, if I was spreading bad information about him or other conservatives, if I attacked Fox News or Sean Hannity or someone else on that realm, that would get promoted. That would get pushed around. The ads would come up. I would be rich. I would be out there. But instead, I'm doing the hard job. I'm lifting the weight for you guys. I'm giving you real hardcore information. And that's why I'm getting punished. That's why I'm struggling with ads. It's because I want to talk about this stuff. I want to condemn China. I want to call out Joe Biden. But it just can't happen anymore, and it's just really frustrating. So that's why I wanted to make this video. It might be a little shorter than usual because there's not much more to say about it. It's just really frustrating because, you can't speak about certain things for one, and then two, it's politically influenced. Obviously, it's not about really protecting the audience. Like, why would these things need to get flagged? They act like they're protecting people from bad information. They're not. They're hiding information that they don't want the public to see. There's nothing hateful about my videos. There's nothing bad here. I'm not being offensive. I'm not being negative or overly I'm not breaking any laws. All they're doing is they're pretending and hiding behind these terms of service and saying, oh, this is hateful. This person's marginalized, when they're really not. There's no hate. There's no marginalized. China is a big-ass country with 1 billion people. I'm not hating on anyone. I disagree with a lot of people. I make points and say, hey, this person's wrong. This person's wrong. I never say I hate anyone. I never say anything hateful or mean. I'm not even really making fun. I mean, I make a few jokes once in a while. Barely anymore because I could barely get away with those anymore. But yeah, there's no hate here. There's no marginalized group. It's just the websites and the social media and the news and all those places trying to funnel and be gatekeepers. They want to gatekeep the news. They want to be in charge and say, hey, this story can go through. This is anti-Trump. It follows our politics. It's coming through. Now you're going to talk bad about China? Close the gate. No talking bad about China because we're pro-China. We're pro-Biden, so you can't talk about Biden. Oh, you want to say something about Biden falling asleep? That's okay, but you can't talk about his really bad accusations that make him look like a very creepy person. No, none of that's allowed. The gatekeepers have spoken, and that's the way I see it. That's the sort of breakdown of the way things are going right now, and hopefully that explains a few things too. Now you can see why Some people might not cover certain stories. I kind of tried to stay away from stuff more when I was kind of doing better and I was getting more ads, but I'm getting to a point where I'm just not getting enough anyway, so why not talk about this stuff? You know, there's no incentive anymore. If they don't keep giving me ads anyway, it's like I'm just going to talk about whatever. I'm just going to kind of try and rely on you guys. If you can support, if you can comment and share and spread the videos on our own, if we can make this mission independent, let's try to get ourselves outside of this. Maybe, possibly, if you can, donate to the show. Check out our membership link. Check out our Patreon, PayPal, all that stuff. It's really easy to figure out. It's in the descriptions of every video. But I'm not here to beg. I'm not here to say, oh, woe is me. I'm just saying I'm sick of playing these games. I'm sick of not speaking about certain things. So I'm going to do it once in a while. It might not go well, but here it is. It's worth a try. Now you know my story. That about wraps things up. I hope you enjoyed what I have to say. Comment your thoughts on everything below. Do you think some of this content is actually hateful? Do you think China is actually marginalized? Or do you think this sort of censorship is politically motivated? Comment your thoughts on everything below. Hit the like button to help support this channel. Share this video if you can, everywhere you can. And thanks for watching. Have a great day.